Right, good afternoon then, folks, as we head into US trade on Monday, the 7th of August, on a pretty choppy start to the week, which is not too difficult to wrap your head around when you take into consideration that it is a Monday after a choppy week last week. Choppy week, one directional to begin the week and then one directional to end the week, but a pretty volatile week last week. Honestly, traders taking a bit of a chill pill in today's European session, which we'll have a look at some charts now once we get around to it. But you can see Wall Street set to kick off week higher, US inflation and focus against looking ahead to the rest of the week. Dollar edges up ahead of inflation release, Euro digest German data again looking ahead. Sterling hovers near 5-week low versus the dollar's trade is still chewing over BOE. So the market's still a little bit undecided about the Bank of England from last week. Really, it's not a lot of clear-cut direction or clear-cut reasons for any sort of direction over the course of the weekend and into today's European session. So a couple of things to look out for once we get around to some charts, especially with yields moving about this morning, but we will look at that once we get around to, as I said, some charts, but not a lot in the way of fresh fundamental information. Oil dips after sustained rally bolstered by supply cuts, likely to remain supported in the near term. You'd have to imagine oil with US inventories again pulling lower, pushing lower against supply in the US last week. Slightly negative, slightly lower, continues to continues to be a reducement of supply of oil globally at the moment, especially when you take into consideration that Saudi Arabia and Russia decided to extend supply cuts through September at the OPEC meeting last week. Apart from that, then we'll head into the grid, and you can see relatively mixed. I mean, you can see US equity futures slightly higher, but European, Asian equity futures pretty mixed, commodities pretty mixed. You can see yields are slightly higher, which we'll have a look at now in a minute. Certainly in the US, global yields a little bit mixed, but US dollar pretty choppy, no clear-cut direction across the US dollar. Aussie and the Kiwi up slightly, but they're a bit of a bounce back from a pretty aggressive sell-off last week, which is not too difficult to kind of understand as well. Obviously, a substantial sell-off in the price of the Australian and Kiwi dollars last week. Bit of a bounce back this morning is not unsurprising. Canadian dollar, euro, sterling. Sterling relatively strong, but you can see in the past on the headlines, sterling hovers at 5-week lows. So again, not too much to be read into there, I don't think, in terms of sterling's price action this morning. The Japanese yen lower, Swiss lower, likely due to the fact that yields are slightly higher. Apart from that, you jump into some charts. We'll have a quick look at the economic calendar, where there is not a lot of fresh data over the course of today and into tomorrow. You can see no high impact data across today. Across Tuesday, nothing really of note. Really, we got to wait till Wednesday CPI out of China, and then into US inflation on Thursday, which obviously we'll allude to more as we go on through the week. We had a little bit of a talk about it on this morning's video, looking at the week ahead. You can see yields chopping about a bit of a pullback from that, the sell-off post NFP the other day. Looking back to last Friday, it's strong sell-off, which is maybe a little bit difficult, certainly for me personally, to wrap my head around them. If you have a quick look back to the previous week, come back to Friday, scroll down, you can see here, I mean, NFP, the headline NFP print below consensus, which is, it is what it is, 13K below consensus, so less jobs added to the economy than markets had anticipated. But the unemployment rate comes down, average hourly earnings remain strong year over year and month over month. So wage growth remains positive, the unemployment rate comes down. So in terms of that sort of a sell-off, for me, it was a bit difficult to wrap my head around once that came out then on Friday. Obviously, massive downside across US yields, 10s and 2s, which was maybe a little bit unexpected in terms of the aggressiveness of the move for me personally. That has not driven too much price action across the US dollar. Slightly lower and then slightly back higher to over the course of the European session, but these yields, if these continue lower, it should continue to be negative for the US dollar. It has come back and it has tested this little resistance level, as we can see then through here, and then has pushed lower on the dollar index. And the further lower those yields go, the more negative it becomes from the dollar, from the dollar's perspective. And more support it should lend to the equity markets. You've had a bit of a pop over the last hour in the S&P and the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq and the Russell flat, but they're all relatively flat. You can see the big sell-off into the close on Friday at 6 o'clock on Friday. Now a bit of a rally off the back of NFP, and then a move back lower. Again, just choppy price action, not very easy to pinpoint some direction. You can see the S&P, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the Russell, the DAX, the Euro stocks, and the FTSE all lacking direction to begin the week. But if those US yields continue lower, it should be relatively supportive for the stock market. So something to keep an eye on as we head into US trade today. But difficult trade over the course of this morning. Not a lot of price action to work with, not a lot of movement to work with. This type of morning, you need to keep your money in your pockets. But those yields for me will be in focus as we head into today's US trading session. They continue lower, should be negative for the dollar, maybe supportive for equities. That's kind of how I would feel about heading into today's US session. But as I said, not easy to pinpoint some direction. Maybe a little bit careful. It is a Monday morning. Maybe give the US a little bit of time to settle down post open in about 12 minutes time. So yeah, lack of direction to begin the week. Hopefully it picks up again, or picks up a bit over the course of the week, but inflation on Thursday may mean markets keep slightly subdued as we head on through the first part of this week.